Bruchim Haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Yud Tes Amud Aleph, 6 lines from the bottom from the 2 dots. The Gemara is going on the last part of the Mishnah that says that both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel agree that after the olives and the grapes were used and cut in order to then produce wine and oil, afterwards you can put a heavy beam on top of them in order to then allow the juice of the olive and the juice of the grapes to then ooze out. Says the Gemara the following: Maishna kuhulu de gazu buhu beishamai beishamai umaishna karois beis habad ve'igule hagas de loy gazru. Ask the Gemara the obvious question: why is it different that in the beginning of the Mishnah, when it came to then various things that one cannot do before Shabbos, because the malacha will continue by the kelim on Shabbos? For example, a person can't put dyes and soak them in water on Erev Shabbos because the dyes will continue to then soak, and there'll be a malacha of lisha, taking different particles, and combining them al yidei the water. Similarly, the Mishnah brings other examples. A person cannot set out traps because on Shabbos, those kelim, those traps, could then do the malach of tzeidah on Shabbos by trapping an animal. So how come Beis Shammai, who says that's osur because shfisas kelim is an isir de'araisa, how is that different than over here when you allow your beams to then be on top of the olives and the grapes? They are also causing ultimately the juice of the grapes and the oil of the olives to then come out. Answers the Gemara the following distinction: Hanoch di'i aviluhu b'Shabbos mechayev chatos gazu buhu Beis Shammai erev Shabbos im chashecha karos Beis Habad ve'igul dagas di'i aviluhu b'Shabbos lo mechayev chatos loy gazu. The Gemara makes the following chiluk, that in all of those cases in the Reish of our Mishnah, it's talking about where there be a chiyuv chatos. That means that the kelim would be doing a malacha deraisa, lisha, for example, kneading or trapping tzeidah. But over here, there's no malacha deraisa involved. And therefore, since there's no malacha deraisa involved, all it's doing is expediting the juice of the olives and the juice of the grapes to then ooze out by allowing this plank, this beam to sit on top of the olives and the grapes. Therefore, it's not a malacha d'oraisa, whereby they weren't goizer in iser of allowing these planks to be put before Shabbos. Man tana de kol midi de osi mimele shapir dami. Who is the tana that holds that you can allow the juice to come out in itself, and that's okay on Shabbos? Omar Rabbi Yosi bar Bechanina Rabbi Yishmael. This is Rabbi Yishmael's opinion that ascribes to this opinion that allows that something can come out. The juice can come out on its own, and it's shapir domi. This nan, for it says in the Mishnah, Hashum v'haboiser v'hamalilois sheroskon mibod yoim. If you have garlic that was cut up, or undeveloped grapes that were cut up, or various types of melilois, different types of grains that were cut up, also they weren't completely developed. All of these things are used as a dip from their juice. So it says over here that of all of these things were cut up before Shabbos, Rabbi Yishmael oimer yigmor mishetechshach. He says that lichatchila, you can put a beam on it, and allow those juices to come out. Rabbi Akiva oimer lo yigmor. Rabbi Akiva argues and says you can't. Presumably because then you might come ultimately to then squeeze these types of grapes or other things that might be used when you see that there are the liquids that are coming out. And therefore that's also, you cannot be goimer and put these beans on top of these items before Shabbos. Rabbi Elazar Omar Rabbi Elazar he. Now Rabbi Elazar is the Amora, Rabbi Elazar ben Padas. He says this is indeed Rabbi Elazar, the Tana, that's Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua. This nan, it says in the Mishnah, Chalois dvash, if you have honeycombs, sheriskan be'erev Shabbos, that were cut up before Shabbos, v'yatzu me'atzmon, osir, Rabbi Elazar matir. If those honeycombs that were cut up before Shabbos then bring out the honey throughout Shabbos, according to the Tana Kama, it's osir. However, according to Rabbi Elazar, you can use that honey that came out even on Shabbos. So you see that Rabbi Elazar is of the opinion that juice that oozes out subsequently after cutting up the honeycomb is indeed mutter. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, my time Allah Omar ke Rabbi Elazar. Why did Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, who said that the opinion that says you can go and allow the juice that is oozed out to be mutter is Rabbi Yossi, is Rabbi Yishmael, instead of using the opinion of Rabbi Elazar that we just quoted? Omar lach. So he'll say, Hasam hu de mikara. When it comes to the honeycomb that was cut before Shabbos, so the honey itself was nechshav, was considered to be oichel, and even after it was cut, the honey that was now cut up, and the honeycomb that was cut up, also that is considered to be oichel. In other words, it was oichel before, it was oichel afterwards. But hacha mikara oichel v'hashta mashke. But over here, we're talking about that which was first grapes and olives, that's oichel, and then afterwards, subsequently, it was juice that then came out of it. So therefore, that's going to be not like the opinion of Rebbe Elazar. He was dealing with oichel that came out oichel, and we're talking about mashke that resulted from oichel. Rabbi Elazar, Amar Lach, Rabbi Elazar's response will be to you, Choshaminon leil Rabbi Elazar. We hear from Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua, the Tana, Dafilu zeisim va'anovim nami shori, that even grapes and olives would also be permissible if they were cut up before Shabbos and the juice oozes out now on Shabbos. They are permissible, even though it's now mashke that comes from oichel. Doho kiyasa Ravoshaya mineherdo osa va'aisi ma'isnisa biyodei. When Rav Oshaya ben Herdah came and he brought a brisa in his hands, what did it say in that brisa? The following: Zeisim va'anovim sheriskon be'erev Shabbos v'yatzu me'atzmon asurim. Those zeisim and those anovim that were cut up before Shabbos and subsequently during Shabbos, their juice, either the olive juice, the oil, or the grape juice, came out. According to Tana Kama, they're asur, because it's a malacha of mifarik, of squeezing. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon matirin. In other words, according to Tana Kama, you will then squeeze out those zeisin anovim. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon matirin. They said that juice is mutter because it started before Shabbos. So you see that over here, even mashkin that came from mashkin, Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua holds is mutter. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, Beraisa lo shmialei. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, the reason why I didn't hold like Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua, because he didn't know this brisa. He only knew that which he said by the honeycomb. And that he said was oichel that comes from oichel. Even after you cut the honeycomb, the honey that comes out is still considered to be oichel. So it's not going to be doime, similar to our case of zeisim and anovim. Now the Gemara asks the other way. Rabbi Elazar, my time Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina. Why didn't Rabbi Elazar, the Amara, choose to say the reason, like Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina did, that the Tana that ascribes to this opinion is Rabbi Yishmael? Says the Gemara, V'amar loch, lav itma Allah, Amar Rav, lav itma Allah. Is it not taught the following on that statement? Amar Rav bar Chanina, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, b'mechusarin dicha de kuliyam aloi pligi. Now there are three stages. There's the cutting up, being mirasek. There's a stage of dicha, being doiche, the medicha, rather. That dicha stage is another stage of causing the juice to come out. And then there's a third stage, which is shchika. So the Gemara says like this: "B'mechusarin dicha de kuliyam aloi pligi." In regards to that which is missing the stage of dicha, that's after the the cutting up, the being merasek, then everybody agrees that that is osir. If you haven't done yet dicha, let's say pounding, and causing the juice to come out, then everybody agrees that certainly is going to be osir because only the first stage of cutting up the grapes was done. In other words, there's so much more juice that has to be extracted, and that will still be considered the malach of mefarek, a type of squeezing, which would be osir. So of course, if dicha wasn't done, now it's osir. Everybody agrees. Kipli, what is the machloikis between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva? That machlokis is b'mechusarin shechika. If it's missing the third stage, that means it was cut up and it was also dicha, it was also pounded, but it wasn't the third stage of shechika. That's where there's a machlokis in Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. V'hani nami, and in our mission in regards to the grapes and the olives, it's also talking about such a thing, k'mechusarin dicha damu, that is missing dicha. And therefore, there in our Mishnah, since it's missing dicha, that, according to Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva, certainly would be osir. Hara Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Chanina, he taught, or he gave a hara in a case just like the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael. Then again, that if the first stage alone is done, that means that it was only miraskin. So then, according to Rabbi Shmuel, that's going to be mutter lichatchila, and therefore he ascribed to that opinion and was mara halacha like Rabbi Yosi, Rabbi Chanina. Shemen shel badodin umachzole shel badodin. Now that we're talking about the wine presses, and in this case the olive press, so those oils that are left in the corners of the olive press and those mats that are in the olive press, so there's a consideration, maybe they're muktzah, because the juice of the olives, the oil that are in the corners, that are used to give the olive pressers their wages. And the mats, the machzolas of the olive press, those are used for pressing the olives. So there's a machlokes of here. Rav osar, because he says this is muktzah, and you cannot therefore use the shemen or the mats on Shabbos or on Yontif, because they're set aside for either the wages of the olive pressers or for the olive pressers malach of doing the pressing with the mats. Ushmul Ashari. Shmuel says it's mutter, it's not considered to be a problem of muktzah. Hani karchi dezuzi. This is also a pair of mats that were used in regards to the sfina, where they would cover up the sfina. Rabbi Aser Shmuel Shari. Rabbi says it is Aser because they're used to cover up the pragmatica, the wares, the things that are sold that are kept on the boat. So they're used to cover it up. So therefore they're muktzah. Whereas Shmuel Shari, he says, is not considered to be a problem of muktzah. Omer of Nachman, in regards to the idea of muktzah now on Yontif, Rav Nachman says, an eiz lechalva, if you take an eiz and not for its shchita, but rather in order to then milk it, v'rochel legezizasa, and you take a rochel, a sheep, in order to shave and shear it for its wool, and again, not to kill it, to shecht it for its meat. V'tarnegoyles lebeitzasa, and you use the tarnegoles you set aside for its beitza before Yom Tif, and not to shecht it for Yom Tif. V'turi diridia, and you have an ox that you set aside for its plow, and not in order to then shecht it on Yom Tif. V'tamri diiska, and you have dates that are set aside before Yom Tif for being sold and delivered to be sold, and not for it being eaten and consumed on Yom Tif. So then Rav Aser Shmuel Omar Mutter. Rav says it's also all of these things because they're muktzah now on Yom Tif. They're set aside for these things and not for being used on Yom Tif for shchita. Whereas Shmuel says it's mutter. What is their machloikis based on? All of these cases of Aser and mutter, of muktzah or not muktzah. V'kemifli beplukta the Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon. This is a result of the machlokes, which is a running machlokes throughout Masechet Shabbos and also in Beitzah, that we find the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon in regards to muktzah. Of course, in terms of the institution of muktzah, everybody agrees that there is muktzah. The question is to how far and is the extent of the muktzah. Rabbi Yehuda is machmir when it comes to muktzah. Rabbi Shimon is more mekel and less rigid when it comes to muktzah. And therefore Rav, which says is Aser, he ascribes to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, whereas Shmuel ascribes to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Says the Gemara, Hahu Talmuda Da'ari Becharta Da'argiz. Rabbi Shimon, there was a Talmud that was Mara, the halacha like Rabbi Shimon in the city of Charta Da'argiz. So he said that something was not muksa like Rabbi Shimon's opinion. And he's matir. Shamte Rav Hamnuna. Rav Hamnuna was Shamte, he put him in Nida. That means he put him in excommunication. V'hak Rabbi Shimon Svir Leilon. The Gemara asks, but Rabbi Shimon, we hold like his opinion, that it's not muksa. We're more lenient in regards to muksa like Rabbi Shimon. Answers the Gemara, why did Rav Hamnuna put this Talmud into excommunication? Because Ba'asri de Rav Hava. Because this took place in the place of where Rav was the Rav. And therefore, he went against the opinion of Rav, who said it's also like Rabbi Yehuda. Ba'asri de Rav Hava, lo yiboy leila ma'avid hochi, he shouldn't have then been Mara Hara, neged the opinion of Rav, who was the prevailing Rav in that area. The Gemara now brings another incident of Talmidim. Hani trei Talmidei, there are two students. Chad matzil bechad moneh, v'chad matzil ba'arbe v'chamesh moneh. Here we're talking about where there was a fire that took place, and the Chachamim were goyzer that a person, although there are non-muksa items that can be taken into the Chatzar, where there's going to be an Erev, there won't be an issue of Hotzah either. But they said when there's a fire, there's a concern that maybe somebody will become Nivhal, and throughout the Beholah, his panicky state, he might then put out the fire. So they said you can only take a certain amount into outside of the house. So it says over here, Chad matzil bechad mana, v'chad matzil be'arba v'chamesh mana. One was able to then rescue enough with one kli, and the other one with 4 or 5 kelim. What's the machlokes? V'kemiflegi bepluka de Rabba bar Zav de Rav Huna. They argued about a machlokes that Rabba bar Zav and Rav Huna argued whether you can take out as much as you can in one kli or in several klis that will be put into one kli.